present about truth and reality in philosophy of science. So the first topic we will discuss about introduction. After we have been able to define proposition of meaning of a sentence in the previous chapter that we will discuss before, now how this proposition can determine whether it is true or false. To decide true or false about something, we must look at the picture of the reality itself. We can be able to directly judge true or false values to a sentence without first finding out how the state of the word is. For example, in sentence 1, we should be looking at the garden first before we determine the true value of the sentence. This is because we don't know what is extension or reference. If we know the proposition are expressed, we also can imagine the situation, so we can conclude whether the statement is true or false. There is a certain condition which must exist to make a statement is true. So that the certain situation is the cherry tree that being discussed in this statement must be blooming at the time of speaking. The next example, sentence 2 and sentence 3. In the sentence number 2 is the contradiction because the statement must be false based on the words itself. First, it mentions about the bank manager, and then it also mentioned about is not a bank manager. So we can conclude it is false. But in the sentence 3, the statement must be true because the sentence mentions the same thing twice. However, if we analyze the subject, we find that green is a component part and the green is also predicate. So, of course, it is a true one. Next, sentence number 4, we know that the true condition of the facts that makes it impossible for the statement to be true. In the sentence 1, we can go to the garden and look at the tree to determine the true value. But in the sentence 4, even if we are the same garden, we will not be able to check it. That's because it doesn't allow us to imagine what can be considered to accept it as true or reject it as false. Or we can say that we can receive it logically. Next, in two sentences number 5 and 6 can be said to be true, but each has different type of true. In sentence 5, we can prove that oil can float on the water if we need it. We can also imagine the situation where that statement is not true when we imagine the context created in the scientific fiction, where oil has properties so different from what we know, so that oil will be sink in the water. On the other hand, we cannot possibly imagine where sentence number 6 would be incorrect. Next, about true conditions. From the nature of propositionality, as we discussed in previous chapter, propositions can be the content of the thought, the object of the belief, or our current point of view of the meaning of the sentence. This content of proposition can be described by the true condition that explained by the looking at the meaning of condition that must be in order to be true. For example, sentence number 7, there is a confusion whether this example includes rules about sentences or propositions. The P in question mark can refer to a particular proposition or the form in which the proposition is expressed. And the third topic is about analytic and synthetic sentences. Analytic sentence is if only the analytic process can decide that the sentence are true. It has individual words that will make it is always true. To determine the true value, we need to look at the individual words meaning itself. This is because this is what we call as a synthetic. It is impossible to build the correctness of synthetic sentence only by considering the relationship between the subject and the predicate, because there is no necessary connection between the meanings and the parts of this element. To find out the differences between analytical and synthetic, we can use these example sentences. In example number 8, the predicate contain the concept of the subject. Meanwhile, in the same example number 9, the predicate is outside the idea contained in the subject. While the analysis of meaning of the body will talk about extended, not about the weight. By the definition itself, all puppies are young dogs, but not all of them are adorable. Example 12 is contradiction of analytical statement in example 10. Meanwhile, in the synthetic statement example 11, example 13 is not a contradiction because the concept of adorable doesn't exist in the concept of puppies. So, from example number 14, we know that this is correct because it matches our knowledge of how mathematical works. Our knowledge is depend on the way of how we perceive the word. There is no analysis can prove it. If we take, for example, counting 2 seats along with two another seats and finding out that we have 4 seats, that is not the way to prove it this statement is true. The conclusion we come to the mathematical system that talk about entities and quantities that makes we know that they are 4. But we don't know if we, in the other word, also assume that 2 plus 2 is 4. Next example can be called as possibility. We can say it's true because every bird we have seen has feathers that cover entire body. Unlike example 14, which cannot imagine how we doubt the truth of statement. Example 15, we can imagine observing featherless bird. And about verification. Variable statement is a statement that can be tested and can be accepted as true or rejected as false through observation. In this case, example number 16 and 17 are included in the meaningful statement, while example 18, 19, and 20 are otherwise. This is because this example cannot be discussed scientifically. For example, sentence number 16, we can use the thermometer as the verification method to show that this statement is true. In example 17, we know that how to find the truth from astronomy that proves this statement are false. So while statement number 18, 19, and 20 cannot be treated by the verification method because there is no experiment that can prove it. This statement is derived from speculation, argument, and belief. Therefore, the theory of the truth based on the evidence must be accordance with the facts. The fact that correspond to the statement must be able to carry out in the form of observations.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, everyone, I would like to continue the material from the previous presenter regarding her topic about verification. So now I will continue the topic about truth theories. The best known name of this theory are theory of Alfred Tarski and Donald Davidson. Now, let's know about Tarski first. Alfred Tarski was a logician in the work of University of Warsaw, and then a few years later, he took up a position at the University of Berkeley in California. Tarski attempted to provide an account of any object language consistent with the classical model of truth. Such a model defines all statement as either true or false, such that the truth of a sentence consists in agreement with or correspondent in reality. Underline with correspondent, agreement with the reality. Next, Tarski introduced a version of the formulation of the correspondent account. Every T sentence takes the form. You can look in this slide. X is true if P. X stand for any sentence in object of language, and P stand for proposition stating the condition. X is true if P, we can look the example. Snow is white. The sentence snow is white is true if snow is white. It means that the sentence snow is white is true if snow is really white. For example, it is raining. It's raining is true if you can look in outside is raining. So it is about the theory of Tarski. And according to Tarski, also any truth clarification for a natural language must always be incomplete or partial. And he was a mathematician and logician, not a linguist, so his interest theoretical rather than descriptive semantics. Next, Donald Davidson. Different with Alfred Tarski, Donald Davidson theory of meaning. He interests with the meaning, the theory of meaning. Donald Davidson is a professor of the same university with Alfred Tarski, but he developing the Tarski's idea. What is the theory of David Davidson? Davidson, a theory of meaning is a descriptive semantics that show how to pair a speaker statement with their meanings, and it does this by displaying how semantical properties or values are distributed systematically over the expression of her language. In short, it shows how to construct the meaning. For example, snow is white. You can see in the slide, snow is white if grass is green. So grass is green has the same truth value as the claim that the snow is white. So make some it is the same truth value. Yeah, the meaning of it same truth value. Next. Now, according to Davidson, any two sentences have the same reference, they have the same truth value. And if the meaning of a sentence is what is referred to, all sentences alike in truth value must be synonymous and interval result. So, list of this sentence as itself as a description not only of the truth, but also meaning. Next, it is axiomatic theory from Davidson. His axiomatic system by producing all the sentence of the language for the meaning of the language. So the type of axiom required by the system are axiom of reference. If you make a sentence, you know meaning of the sentence, you have to know the axiom of reference first, as satisfaction and connection. So you look in this slide, the example of it. The fire is hot. So the axiom of reference, X river to X. So fire reverse to fire. So fire reverse to fire. Yeah, of course. Fire is reverse to fire. Axiom of satisfaction. Hot is satisfied with hot thing. Of course, hot is satisfied with hot thing because hot is, yeah, hot things. Yeah, hot thing maybe something hot. Yeah, axioms of connection. Fire and hot are connected. Yeah, of course, fire and hot are connected. So it is the axiomatic theory from the Vincent. Next, these three axioms taken together and applied in English sentence fire is hot. Give us the sentence or sentence as an output. A is B is true if what A reverse to satisfy B. So fire is hot is true if the fire is really hot. Okay, next. Okay, next possible word. Okay, you know the American philosopher in the picture? Yeah, David Lewis. The American philosopher David Lewis said that every possible word is defined by the entities which exist in that word and the fact which are true or those entities. Our world is generally described in this context as an actual word, underline actual. Our word is actual word, but is to be thought of as no different in status from all the other possible word. Our word is actual word, and maybe there are a possible word. Yeah, there are possible word, and that word other than the actual or not imaginary word. They are both just like ours, but in which thing are different to a greater or lesser extent. So, for example, an actual word in our world, snow is white. Maybe in the other possible word, snow is red or maybe green or maybe yellow, something like that. The other example about that also the fire is hot in our actual world. Maybe uh, in our actual world, uh, the fire is hot. But maybe in the other possible world, the fire is cold. Maybe, yeah. So we can conclude that the actual world is our world. Maybe there is a grass is green, and then uh, fire is hot, snow is white, and maybe the other possible, well, maybe grass is pink, maybe snow is yellow, and fire is a cold, or something like that. Next modality. Okay, Aristotle's entrepreneur gives divination. It is necessary for there to be or not to be a sea battle tomorrow, but it is not necessary for a sea battle to take place tomorrow, nor for one not to take place. Stop is necessary for one take place or not to take place. So what something that we get from this definition, from Aristotle definition? It is statements are true depending on how real things are. It is clear that the same necessarily applies to contradiction wherever they are such that they are opposite and fortuitous will. So this is logical notation. What is the logical notation? A logician have developed very streamlined notation. Such notation can be thought of artificial language when their non-logical concepts are interpreted. It is called a logical notation. And then you can look in this slide. It is the example of logical notation. Okay, the first one is you can see the definition here, the symbol for possibility. The symbol of the proposition is P. the symbol of necessity, the symbol of negative statement is negative. Okay, the first one is possibility, proposition, so not necessity, not proposition. And then the possibility, not proposition. So it is not necessity and P. Necessity P. Yeah, necessity not P. It is a possibility not P. And necessity P, not possibility not P. It is the logical notation. The example of logical notation we can look in another slide. Okay. Something, if the something is possibly the case, it is not necessarily not the case. We can look here. Okay. The first one is possibility. Yeah, possibility proposition. Yeah. If something is possibly, it is P, the case, it is proposition. And not, it is negation, negacy, not necessarily, yeah, necessity, not also negacy. This is P. Yeah, next, if something is possibly not or negacy, the case is P. It is not also negacy, necessarily, it is necessity, the case is P. Next. Number 3, if something is necessarily not the case, necessarily not or negation, negacy, not negative statement, the case is P. It is impossible. It is the negative statement, and possible, it is possibility, that is the case, it is P. Next, if something is necessarily the case, necessity, it is impossible. It is this negative sentence, and possible is possible. And this is not the case, not negacy or negative statement, and the case, it is P. Okay, I think enough my explanation about the truth theory, possible world, and modality. And the last essay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. As the last presenter from my group, I will continue the topic counterfactuals, Montague grammar, and linguistic semantics. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Algrin Hayadi. Just call me Algrin. Okay, go to the counterfactuals. What is counterfactual? From my slide, I define that counterfactual involves the human tendency to create possible alternatives to life events that have already occurred, something that is contrary to what actually happened. So counterfactual we can define is something contrary to what actually happened. This thought consists of the what if and if I had only that occur when thinking of how things could have never turned out differently. For example, if only I had not missed the train, I would have been in time to meet him. The fact that I missed the train. So I imagine that I had not missed the train. The reality is contrast from my imagination that I had missed the train. So the reality I not meet the person in time. But if I had not missed the train, I meet someone in time. Another example is that in this morning, I get stomach ache because I eat rice. I imagine that if I had not only eat the rice, maybe I will not get the stomach ache. So uh, just the reality that I get stomach ache, that I imagine that got I got stomach ache. Okay, the next counterfactual thoughts includes things that in the present now could never happen in reality because they solely pertain to events that have occurred in the past. From the slide, you can consider that counterfactual is not only about things had already happened, but is also in something in the present now could never happen. From the example, if there were no clock, we would all live forever. So we imagine that clock is not exist. The clock uh, is not exist in this world. But the fact and the reality, the clock is exist. We hope that when clock is not exist, we all live forever. But in the reality, clocks exist that then we will die someday. And the next is if kangaroo had no tails, they would topple over. From this sentence, we can see that we imagine that the kangaroo had no tails, but the reality kangaroo had tails. So this is the also impossible things that never happen in reality. Okay, the next is there are two kinds of counterfactual thinking. The first is downward counterfactual thinking, and the second is upward counterfactual thinking. Okay, better to define. The first is what is downward counterfactual thinking? Downward counterfactual thinking is when the someone or individual think that in the circumstance or environment will bring the bad effect to our condition, to our situation that we have now. And upward counterfactual thinking is contrast to downward counterfactual thinking. Upward counter thinking when someone think that environment around us or circumstance will bring the positive effect to our condition or our situation that we have now. Okay, the next is benefit of counterfactual thinkings. Okay, counterfactual thinkings bring uh, many many condition about thinking, make us look at the events from multiple angles, making us experience from a different spectrum. Thinking with a counterfactual bent of mind capacity in solving future challenges. It helps the thinkers store important information that could impact the analysis and solution of future events. Okay, before we continue the Monte grammar, we think that better to conclude what we will consider about counterfactual thinking. If we think that counterfactual thinking is good for our life, it will bring positive effect to our life. But if we offer thinking about counterfactual thinking, it will a problem. It will bring a bad effect to our condition, our situation that we face now. Because we just stuck to our condition and do nothing about our activity. Okay, and next to the next topic is about Montague grammar. What is Montague grammar? Montague Grammar is a collection of papers that discuss Richard Montague works on syntax and semantics of natural languages. Montague Grammar takes its name from the philosopher Richard Montague. So we can conclude that collection paper that discuss from philosopher Richard Montague. That's Montague Grammars and his contribution to syntax and semantic, both formalized and natural languages, is significant one. And his aim was to produce universal grammar. Montague Universal Grammars invokes expositions of Montague syntax, supersyntax, theorem on comparison process, semantic interpretation, semantic equivalence of two systems, and interpretive semantic. The collection is intended for reader of Montague as well as for linguists, philosopher, and student of language. Okay, the last topic is about linguistic semantic. Before we continue about define linguistic semantic, better to understand what is semantic. Semantic is field of linguistics is concerned with the study of meaning in language. Linguistic semantic has been defined as study of language, organize and express meaning. Linguistic semantic looks not only at the grammar and the meaning, but language use and language acquisition as well. From my slide, I also define that a very general definition might specify that semantic is concerned with study of meaning in isolation and the pragmatics with meaning in context. So semantic meaning in isolation and pragmatic with meaning in context. In generally, linguistic semantic might be described as being concerned with the practical construction of account and meaning of particular languages. Okay, the next slide is about example from linguistic semantic. There are four sentences that we can analyze from this slide. The first is Bertrand Russell wrote human knowledge. This is consists active sentence, and the second is human knowledge was written by Bertrand Russell. This passive sentence. The aims, the goals of the sentence is the same. The following sentence have the same meaning because they describe the same event or state of affair, but the superstructure is different. The first one is active past sentence, and the second is passive sentence. The next is John Stuart Mill wrote a system of logic. The first is non-clave construction. It was John, and the last was John Stuart Mill who wrote a system of logic, a clave construction. Same from previous sentence is the meaning or the goal of this sentence is the same, that John Stuart who wrote a system of logic. The difference is the only differences from the sentence is about surface structure. The first is non-clave structure and the second is clave construction. Okay, what is the difference is non-clave one and from clave construction? Non-clave construction mean that this is a simple sentence or active sentence, and clave construction is also we call clause. This is consists of noun clause. Okay, that's all I think from my presentation. Thank you for watching, and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.